Let's move on with Media Watch with James Creedon. Hi there, James.
Hi, Catherine.
Surprise, surprise, you're starting off with the Panama Papers again, the big media story of the week.
Yes.
This huge leak, so many more revelations coming out. Time magazine says capitalism is in crisis because of all of this.
That's right. And they're saying voters, they're talking from a US perspective, know at a gut level that our system of global capitalism is working mainly for the 1% and not the 99%. We've been seeing this slogan for the last number of years. But now this seems to kind of be giving a certain amount of proof to those gut feelings or gut instincts. The Panama Papers illuminate a key aspect of why the system isn't working, because globalization has allowed the capital and the assets of the 1% to travel freely, while those of the 99% less so. So perhaps a special treatment, you could say. Global elites beware, says this blog by Peter Apps on Reuters.com. The Panama Papers won't be the last revelation. Now, we've been seeing charts such as this for quite a while saying that Panama, look at that on that list, it's down at number 13. I'm not sure how visible that is there, but you have much bigger tax havens, I suppose, where a lot more global capital is being stored. For example, over 51% of managed assets in Switzerland are from abroad, and that's way, 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 way more than Panama. And indeed, in Panama, we only saw the revelations of just one law firm. So it's a small piece of a big pie, or the tip of the iceberg, as many are saying. To come back to that Reuters article, they're saying this new transparency, if you like, being fueled by whistleblowers and data dumps, is also going to fuel a much wider anti-elite backlash. It can be seen in the political processes in almost every country, from the US election, where Trump and Sanders are benefiting from this idea that the 99% are losing out to massive wealth accumulation by a fraction of the 1%, in fact.
Including Donald Trump.
That's right.
Not saying he's involved in tax avoidance, but he is a wealthy man.
It is an irony, indeed. And then we're seeing the rise of far-right movements in Europe. We're seeing internal machinations in China, Saudi Arabia and 50 other nations. This blog goes on to say the implications of all of this may be widespread and perhaps far from entirely positive. Comparing it to the Arab Spring in 2011, which was in part produced by anger at just these trends. But we saw that what started as a movement full of hope ended, well, we know that it ended in a much more complicated manner. Indeed, it hasn't ended yet at all. But there may be more beneficial consequences, certainly shaking up political and other systems, maybe further regulation of tax systems worldwide. So perhaps something good will come out of it. But I mean, the articles and the headlines are just really so negative across the board. This in Slate Afrique. Africa loses more money for tax evasion than it gains through international aid. Just shocking facts such as that. Vice.com with this somewhat inelegant headline, but basically saying this concerns everybody. It concerns you. The money that these law firms help to hide should be used to pay for your schools, your highways, your hospitals. The criminals it works with run the most violent illegal organisations. In other words, this allows for politicians to take bribes and hide that money. It allows for criminal organisations to money launder. And it's being done and essentially with a blind eye being turned to it.
And I think part of the reason, apart from the secrecy, it's that so many of us, and I'll include myself in this, don't really understand all of the terms that we're talking about. You know, we say tax haven, what does that actually mean? I mean, you just showed a list there of countries involved in it. I'm sure that's news to many people, isn't it? And that greater understanding that we're getting this week is perhaps shifting the anger from the margins more into the mainstream.
That's right. And indeed, the Financial Times has been looking at the way in which these issues are now becoming actually core central focuses of, well, I suppose the Panama Papers. It's just the central focus of most media coverage this past number of days. But it's not just this revelation. There have been a number of data dumps like this. And really, for the Financial Times, the real tipping point was the financial crisis. People experiencing austerity. And they have a different kind of interest in the decisions that are taken about taxation and spending. And since the financial crisis, tax evasion and tax fairness have moved from the fringe to become the subject of parliamentary hearings. People actually care about this. Then books came out like Thomas Piketty's Capital in the 21st Century, and his student, in fact, Gabriel Zuckman, wrote another bestseller, I suppose you could say, in this genre, The Hidden Wealth of Nations, The Scourge of Tax Havens. So basically, there's this big focus on how inequality is a threat to democracy, and the offshore system worsens that problem. So a lot of people have been talking about this for years. For example, former presidential candidate Eva Joly, who was a financial judge in France, and she was interviewed today about something that she's been talking about for a long time. And what she says essentially is that this culture of tax secrecy is anti-democratic, and it's not an accident. It's central to the system, and it's at the heart of capitalism. So what this is going to provoke, I suspect, is real soul-searching about the nature of the capital system, capital flows, regulation or lack thereof, and whether or not a certain form of capitalism is actually incompatible with democracy and a certain notion of equality, because that seems to now just be a fact. It's being established as a fact. It's not a moot point anymore.
There's some pretty big discussions, aren't they?
Yeah.
Let's move away from the published media, so to speak, to social media and ordinary people like you and me having our say. We do love to have our say, particularly on Facebook, don't we? Société Générale has been not enjoying that aspect of social media, I think.
They've been really the focus of a number of Le Monde, also an investigation on France Télévisions has put the focus on the extent to which they were facilitating over the years shell companies for tax evasion, etc. And their moderators or community managers on Facebook are having a nightmare. It started out as a pretty calm weekend. They were promoting sort of various special offers, etc. And then all hell broke loose online, and they're having to take comments offline. They're having to redirect people towards I suppose, what would you say, the press release of their CEO. Anyway, it's a bit of a nightmare. A massive bad buzz for Société Générale online.
But very lovely modern phenomenon that we're able to communicate with our companies and banks in this way, isn't it? Thanks so much. James Creedon with Media Watch.